into Opposing Viewpoints. I'm Tatum Everett, and it's Packers week again. The Vikings make the trek to snowy Lambeau Field for some Sunday night football action with a lot to play for. And to help us get ready for this game, we've got Vikings team reporter and my usual cohort on Opposing Viewpoints, Eric Smith, via Microsoft Teams. And we also have NFL Network's Tom Pelissero here to talk about the Packers-Vikings matchup. Guys, thanks so much for being here today. You know, both these teams with a lot to play for, albeit very different circumstances. Tom, what's at stake for this Packers team in this Sunday night football contest?
Well, really, they're pushing for the #1 seed in the NFC, and they've still got the opportunity to seal that, make everybody else go through Lambeau Field, which is a pretty big deal when you talk about a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that's used to playing down there in Florida, relatively warm weather. Obviously, their quarterback, Tom Brady's got plenty of experience in bad conditions, but as a team, they're practicing in 70-degree heat, so you bring them into your place. The Dallas Cowboys would be another potential candidate, another team that, you know, Mike McCarthy certainly is familiar with Lambeau Field, but, you know, their conditions are a little bit different. And then obviously anybody wants home field advantage for your fans to be behind you. So continuing to do that at a time that, of course, the last time these teams met, the Vikings won a pretty exciting game to be able to kind of, put another one in the win column against an NFC North foe, one of your chief rivals, and also take that next step forward. Those are all big deals for the Packers.
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned the weather. The Vikings actually practiced outside today, trying to get used to the element, trying to get used to the cold. Obviously, it's cold here in Minneapolis, but the Vikings play indoor at US Bank Stadium, so they're trying to get used to those frigid conditions at Lambeau Field. It's a big game for the Vikings, too. As Tom mentioned, a lot rides on it for the Packers. A lot rides on it for the Vikings, too. As we stand right now, Minnesota currently has a 13% chance to make the playoffs following the loss to the Rams. So their playoff hopes are dangling a little bit. And if they can win Sunday night, those playoff odds go up to about 50-50, about a coin flip. However, they're going to have to be scoreboard watching earlier in the day, and depending on what happens, it might be a must-win for Minnesota. If Philadelphia and San Francisco win, Minnesota has to win to stay alive. So, as usual, you know, border battle 123, a lot of storylines, a lot going on. But as the playoffs are right around the corner here, the Vikings know definitely what's at stake.
They know what's at stake. Mike Zimmer 3-0 on Sunday Night Football versus the Packers, which if he wants to improve to 4-0, he's got to get past Aaron Rodgers. Tom, it seems like Aaron Rodgers is just doing his normal thing, Aaron Rodgers things. What has been going on so well for him this season?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things. He just operates at such a high level relative to almost any quarterback in the entire NFL. He's now in his third year in Matt LaFleur's system, so just having full command of that, which I think he showed in his second year as well after that initial transition. He's got a really good supporting cast around him with Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones and guys like Allen Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling who have kind of come into their own. They've patched things together along the offensive line. Then the other big part of it is he's had a good enough defense on the other side. He hasn't had to win a shootout week in and week out. Now, obviously, again, the Vikings put up some points on them last time through here, but in terms of Rodgers, he's just one of the most unique quarterbacks that we've seen in the NFL. There's a reason that he's won 3 MVPs in this league. He can test you in a lot of different ways, even when he's got that fractured left pinky toe and maybe isn't moving as well as he normally would. He's still got that functional mobility. He can still have to get out of the pocket. He seems to get some kind of entertainment out of when he does run, when everybody thinks he can't run, and when he gets himself going a little bit. At this stage in his career, being 38 years old, he knows there's not a lot of runs left. You think back to everything that happened through the course of the offseason, all of that seems to have in one way or another kind of fueled him to move forward here. You know, he's talked strongly and highly of the general manager, Brian Gutekunst, which you would not have thought would have been the case 6 months ago. They've made a lot of moves. They've made free agent pickups. They've made a trade for his buddy Randall Cobb. The draft worked out well. They got one offensive lineman who started every game. They got Eric Stokes, been a pretty good corner. Everything just seems to be coming together, which of course then creates some pressure here because you're never going to have a better opportunity, it would seem, to get that second Super Bowl ring in Green Bay.
Oh, there might be pressure on Rodgers and the Packers to deliver, but Mike Zimmer wants to bring his own pressure on Sunday night. Tatum mentioned that Zimmer's 3-0 on Sunday night. He's actually been pretty successful at Lambeau Field, too, in the last 6 years, 3-2-1 overall. And Zimmer's defense always seems to have a new wrinkle for Rodgers. This is going to be the 15th overall matchup between Aaron Rodgers and Mike Zimmer. And no one will probably gush more, have more respect for Aaron Rodgers than Mike Zimmer. Every time Packers week comes around, Zimmer gushes literally about Rodgers and how he wishes he'd retire, how he's the Hall of Fame player, just on and on and on. And that's not something that Mike Zimmer does very often. So Sunday night, we talked about it's going to be cold. Look for Mike Zimmer to once again maybe throw some more wrinkles at Rodgers. As Tom mentioned, Aaron is not as mobile as he was in the past. And, the Vikings defensive line is a little banged up, especially at the defensive end position. So it's going to take some creativity, some different looks. Harrison Smith, probably a guy to watch. He's going to be moved around a lot as we get ready for another installment of Mike Zimmer against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, you can just watch that film right there and notice how they're able to rattle Rodgers in that contest. Obviously something Coach Zimmer hopes to do again. Let's look at the other side of things though, Tom. And since the Vikings have last played the Packers, there's been a bit of a regression in Green Bay's defense. Just in the last 3 games, they've allowed a rusher to rush for more than 130 yards. And that seems like it sounds good for Vikings fans knowing that Dalvin Cook is returning. So what's been going on with this Packers defense?
Well, really, I think that inevitably over the course of the season, you're going to have some games that are better than others. They've overcome a lot of injuries. If you look back through the course of this season, they're still playing right now without Zadarius Smith. So they've had to overcome not having one of their best pass rusher through the entire season. They also haven't had Jair Alexander, who's a Pro Bowl type of a cornerback. When you're filling some of those spots, you're moving things around. There's always that chess match that goes back and forth. Guys like Rasul Douglas, who they picked up off the street, and he's ended up playing really good football for them. They've been finding ways with Joe Barry as their defensive coordinator. I would certainly think that the tape from that game in Minnesota, however many weeks ago that was, is going to be pretty good teaching tape in terms of informing their game plan this week and how they attack the Vikings, because you go back to that game and there were certainly stretches where it did not seem like they had a lot of answers for what Minnesota was doing.
Yeah, Tom, you talk about stretches of play. Vikings offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak might have had the line of the day today where he said, this offense needs to play well for 4 quarters and not just a half. And really the big emphasis for Minnesota right now is in the red zone. Against the Rams on Sunday, the Vikings were 2 of 5. Anthony Barr's interception set up 2 glorious chances to score, and the Vikings only scored 10 points. That's a situation where you definitely want to get 14. So red zone emphasis is definitely a focus this week for the Vikings, but they're going to have to do it obviously without Adam Thielen, who was placed on injured reserve earlier this week with an ankle injury. Thielen has been a magnet in the red zone. This year he has 10 touchdown catches, 9 of them have been in the red zone. In the last 2 years he's had 24 total touchdowns, 22 of them have been in the red zone. So Kirk Cousins always looks for Adam Thielen inside the 20. So other guys are going to have to step up, whether that's Justin Jefferson, Tyler Conklin is a guy to keep an eye on. We mentioned Dalvin Cook. Amir Smith-Marset had a red zone touchdown against the Bears. So it's going to have to be an all-hands-on-deck effort. And as we all know and we saw earlier this season, the Vikings are going to have to score some points. They can't settle for field goals inside the 20. They're going to have to score touchdowns in order to get a win against Green Bay.
Yes, Eric, over the last 3 games, the Vikings are 6 of 11 in the red zone, which ranks 16th in the league. There's definitely some room there for improvement. No room for improvement, though, in our hot takes. They're usually pretty spot on, so no pressure, Tom. We've got a hot take Thursday coming at you. What is your biggest take for this Vikings-Packers game?
I'll say Aaron Rodgers can wrap up his 4th MVP. It's a national TV game against your rival in the cold. You know that the broadcast crew will be gushing about Aaron Rodgers throughout the course of that game. If he plays well against a veteran defense, run by Mike Zimmer, who through the years has had some really good battles and has beaten him a number of different times, and also take that next step forward in terms of the number 1 seed and to do it on that stage, even though everything should be equal, and you would like to think that voters are going to base it upon the totality of everything that you've done relative to other players. these national TV games still influence things, especially late in the season. People want to see guys playing at their best. I'd tell you last week when I did my annual survey of executives and GMs around the league, Rodgers won that poll over Jonathan Taylor. He's in prime position to do it. If he comes out and struggles and throws a few interceptions, it can work against him. So, it's obviously about getting another Super Bowl for Aaron Rodgers, but he talked about it this week. Would love to put that fourth MVP in his trophy case after an offseason in which he contemplated his future. It'd be a pretty cool story for him, and the Packers hope it's just part of the cool story that they'll be putting together here over the next 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, no doubt Vikings fans will have to listen to all that Aaron Rodgers love leading up into the game. But let's give some love for the Vikings,
Always.
Eric. What's your hot take in this one?
Yeah, I have to get back on track a little bit. I was good last week. My hot take is that Sunday's game at Lambeau Field is going to be decided by 8 points or less, and that's usually the case with rivals. It's usually pretty close, but we all have followed the Vikings this season. I think they're on a streak of 12 games in a row that have been decided by one score or less. 14 of 15 have been decided by that amount. And it's going to happen again because, hey, it's the 2021 Vikings that we're talking about. It doesn't matter if they play well, they'll find a way to slip up at some point and the game's going to be close. Or even as we saw last week when they played, kind of a slow start against the Rams, they kind of had to turn it on late. The final score, once again, decided by 7 points or less. As we talked about, it's going to be cold. It's going to be a great atmosphere. Vikings players need to start fast in this game. They did not against the Rams, and they're going to have to be better. But I think when we get to the end, at the end of 60 minutes or maybe more, if we're talking about overtime, it's once again going to be a close game.
Wow, I don't know if I can handle another one. 14, goodness gracious, it's felt like that. It's not going to felt like it's been 14 years to get through those games sometimes. Well, Tom, we've got one last thing before we go. We want to know what you think it'll take for the Packers to win this game.
I think the Packers will win if their defense shows up. I don't think that there's a lot of illusions, and as much as the Vikings, of course, are going to game plan to shut them out, there's not a lot of illusions that you're going to completely take away what Aaron Rodgers can do, especially at Lambeau Field, the way that he can create plays, the way he can get guys to jump offside, all the control that he has at the line of scrimmage there. And you look at his record in that building, it's been phenomenal over time. So Packers are going to score some points. It's about, can the Packers defense play better than they played last time against the Vikings? And really look at a bunch of the matchups through the years, especially since Kirk Cousins got there. Dalvin Cook's had some good games against the Packers. Certainly Cousins has put up some big numbers against the Packers. This is an important game because you mentioned statistically, some of the issues that the Packers have had in recent weeks on the defensive side. This is a game where, this could be a springboard toward the postseason. Week 18 against the Lions, depending what the situation is, you may not be playing your starters. If you are playing them, it's not against the Lions defense or an offense that has set the world on fire. So getting right this week, that's what the Packers defense needs to do. If they do that, if they can step up, then the Packers should have a good chance to win the game.
And that'll be facing a healthy Dalvin Cook after having a week off himself. So he's got some fresh legs. Eric, now it's your turn. What do the Vikings have to do to get out of Lambeau with a victory?
Yeah, speaking of Dalvin, they're going to have to rely on him and control the clock. As we've seen in so many games between the Vikings and Packers over the past few years, Aaron Rodgers is not afraid to strike fast. We saw that back at US Bank Stadium late, just before the 2-minute warning, when he threw that 75-yard touchdown to tie the game. But the Vikings have to kind of control the ball and control the clock if they want to win. And like we talked about earlier, they have to score touchdowns. But if they can put together, 6, 7, 8-minute drives and keep Aaron Rodgers cold on the sideline, that's going to lead to probably more success. The Vikings, for a long time, ever since Mike Zimmer has gotten here, they've talked about being a tough physical team that wants to run the ball and control the clock. Given the frigid temperatures that we're going to see on Sunday night, given that all is on the line for the Vikings, with their playoff hopes, I think Minnesota is going to go back to its bread and butter. They're going to rely on Dalvin Cook, a fresh, hopefully, fully healthy Dalvin Cook after that week off, and they're going to ground and pound. They're going to try to control the clock and try to keep those slim playoff hopes alive.
Well, speaking of cold, it's supposed to be about 5 degrees at kickoff, so you guys better pack your layers if you're headed to that game this weekend. Big thank you to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero for joining us here on Opposing Viewpoints. Tom, are you headed to the game?
I will be snugly warm on my couch watching this one, Tatum, so I'm not going to argue with that. It's going to work out well. Always love going to Lambeau, but this is a good week to be home.
Yeah, good one to sit out on. No, don't need your battery-powered hand warmers or whatever they use up here. I still don't really know. So thank you so much for being here. Stay warm at home, guys. And don't forget that big Vikings-Packers game on Sunday Night Football, kickoff set for 7:20. For Vikings team reporter Eric Smith and Tom Pelissero, I'm Tatum Everett. Thanks for watching.